What's up, YouTube? I'm actually starting this video to provide some type of realistic example for those who are about to go through what I just went through when it comes to a child being diagnosed with multicystic dysplastic kidney. Truth be told, our daughter was diagnosed with this at a 20-week ultrasound, as most are. It was objectively crazy to think about when it happened, and to be honest with you, the hospital we were dealing with is Chester County Hospital in Pennsylvania. They botched that situation very badly. What had occurred, more or less, was that we had shown up for that. That's obviously where you find out if it's a boy or a girl. To be real with you, we went and they said we were a day early. My wife's a nut, so I couldn't believe it, but they wouldn't see us when they had to go back the next day. I had the ability to get out of a promise I'd made professionally, so my wife goes by herself. Didn't think much of it at that time. Knew she was there, was waiting for a text of some sort, and she sent me a picture of the ultrasound with a happy message, and I thought, nice, we're good. And 5 minutes later, she's in the car, hysterically crying, called me 5 times in a row. I pick it up, and she tells me that the kid's got one kidney that has failed. There's a possibility it could go to the other kidney. If it does, we lose the kid, which is obviously shocking news. It's also obviously something that by no means should ever become between the situation of you hear about this and 5 minutes later you're in your car, no questions asked, that were reasonable because you didn't have time to think about what was the reality of this words you just heard spoken to you that really stand to be the most dramatic and unbelievable words you'll ever hear. It almost felt unreal, and to be honest with you, it had me quite skewed into the idea of where I should be with it. I'm thinking in my head, you got to be positive, because the woman, my woman, bless her heart, she's a nut when it comes to worrying. That's very, very hard line to draw. Am I acting like I don't care about this? She's fighting with me here and there because of that. They're hormonal anyway. It's a tough situation. It's just absolutely indescribable. But my nature is never to be much worried about anything and never accept the fact that there's not a way for something to work itself out. At that time, they had said to us that they recommended we go, and we're very lucky, man. We're only 20 minutes south of Philadelphia, which holds Children's Hospital Philadelphia. And CHOP is, by all means, a miracle. It's a group of the best doctors in the world, really, between them and Boston University and Children's Hospital of Boston. But from the moment we even called them, they were very reassuring about when taken, with caution. This is a diagnosis that certainly can produce a wonderfully beautiful baby girl or boy. And as long as that one kidney behaves and they keep an eye on it to make sure that if at any time the situation is skewing from where that's intended, that they take action. And honestly, be prepared. We had to be up there once a week for follow-ups from the 20-week, I think it was 23 weeks we got in, had our initial ultrasound with CHOP. They detail each and everything. They have an incredible machine that's just mind-blowing. You can see everything that ever had to do with your baby. I knew exactly pretty much what it was going to look like. But I guess the reason I'm making this is initially they'd say don't Google it. Really? Obviously, I'm Googling it. And I got lucky. I had a doctor that I do a lot of work for. I'm an independent contractor. And he's a pediatrician that I was able to talk to, who reassured me that this is probably something that it's certainly going to be something that we deal with for the rest of our lives, and her for the rest of her life. But that it was very well capable of being maintained healthy, which was not assured to my wife. And again, you have to realize that if you've just been told this, you're lost. Your mind's playing tricks on you. It's impossible. I kept hearing, don't worry, don't worry. Well, what? You know? You never really put yourself in that position to hear that your daughter or otherwise, it's not like they hurt themselves. You know, it's just genetic. Well, actually, they don't know that it is genetic. And they don't know exactly what, when, where, and why this happens. It's something that, supposedly, from what I can understand, and believe me, I've asked a lot of questions. Truth be told, I'm the type that has to understand why. Not just because someone told me and they are smarter than me. That said, excuse me, trying to get off the smokes. That said, there's about 1 million steps, literally, that the body process or the growing process of a baby goes through to develop the kidneys. If at any time one of those kidneys goes astray or a malfunction of some sort occurs in there, it's actually the body's way of dealing with that to, in fact, abandon it. Stop putting any energy into growing that kidney the right way, as it's already gone astray. However, this stuff that's already there that was developing into a kidney then becomes live biological tissue that wants to keep alive. That can work against itself, and this is the scare. If it does develop well enough that it can operate, it can actually be a negative result. And I'm not a medical professional. That's why I'm making this vlog. Truth be told, it is, in my opinion, a much better, from what I can understand, and then believe me, like I said, I have hundreds of hours into researching this. It's been happening for ages, maybe forever in the world, and there's a record number of older people. You know, I'm 35 and very well may have one kidney. I don't know. I've never had it checked. It's pretty astonishing in that circumstance, and I was very lucky to hear from CHOP that they're going above and beyond in genetic testing to try to find a gene that causes this, to see if it is hereditary. But as of right now, they say it's completely by chance, and generally, at least unilateral, which is what my daughter has, where it only happens in one kidney, is not hereditary. And that being said, there's two main concerns about how the result happens. Right now, her good kidney is about 5 centimeters long. She was born, they were inducing my wife last Sunday, at which time we got prepared. They said that it was hard for them to give us any kind of guarantees when it comes to when, how, where, and why we will be in the hospital after the delivery, depending on how she reacts once she's out. So we go, they had actually said that my wife was having convulsions, or not convulsions, compressions. What are they? You know what I mean. When we got there, she didn't know it. She couldn't feel them. And they went to induce her. They give her a thing to soften the cervix. And to make a long story short, all of a sudden, she goes into labor naturally, which screwed it up pretty bad. We ended up being in there. It was actually Wednesday that we were able to deliver the baby. She did deliver naturally, vaginally. It was an awesome thing to see, man. I was right there holding her leg. And again, I can't say enough about CHOP and just how amazing their process is. Their special delivery unit is bar none, absolutely comprised of the best of the best. It's one of the only hospitals that has an advanced NICU, which is neonatal intensive care unit, to do the follow-ups with the baby. Most of the time, and this is what scared us, I was very much against the Chester County deal. As soon as I heard from her in regards to them allowing her to walk out of there, as upset as she was, and at which point I called and snapped, lost my mind on these people. Like, why in the fucking world would you allow my wife to walk out of that office with no fucking questions being asked? Number one. Number two, why would you not ask if there was a man involved and say that we're waiting on tests and, you know, you need to come back and fucking deal with it together in a well thought out process? Give us a minute to fucking register this situation. And I want to ask the worst case scenarios, the best case scenarios. I want to know everything in between, and I want to know everything that's ever happened with this fucking diagnosis. You know what I mean? And you're talking to me like our daughter's just some kind of fucking flea that disappears or whatever, and it's just another number to you. And I understand there's a certain amount of detachment that has to occur when it comes to a doctor speaking of a patient, but that's completely fucking absurd. Funny as it sounds, they didn't even call me back until the next day. And at that point, they called me 100 times. I got the director of the hospital calling me. I had 1 million people calling me because I left a hell of a message. And to be honest with you, I was turned off. I didn't want to go anywhere near them. It was highly bothering me. And then we see the machine at CHOP, and it was just like, what? But the reality is that if you deliver at a lesser advanced hospital, when it comes to the aftercare for the baby, there's a very good chance that you're going to have your baby taken to a hospital that's made for children. Okay? I mean, there's almost 700 beds in the NICU, total NICU floor at CHOP, and there's only 10 beds in their special delivery unit. Most of the babies are coming from other hospitals to get that next level care that CHOP was able to provide us. Now, that being said, we were very lucky enough that they take it seriously enough that they will allow us to deliver in their special delivery unit. But that's an issue as well, and not an issue. I was very lucky to have my wife being level-headed during the time, but your wife will stay on another floor, almost a mile walk through the hospital to get to the baby, and she's going to be tore up after this. Whether she has a C-section or vaginal delivery, it's not going to matter. There's going to be a major situation where she's hormonal, she's got no sleep, she just gave birth, she's tore apart, and the fact is that she wants to see the baby. Everybody wants her to see the baby, but it just can't happen that way. It really can't. Now, 5 days later, I'm seriously confident that more than anything, our baby was desiring that love, that connection, that skin-to-skin, bond that it was somewhat deprived of. I spent most of the time after birth in the NICU and was running back and forth. We are trying to do the nursing naturally. She won't take to a nipple, but my wife's pumping. And I was very lucky. My wife recovered incredibly fast. She looks amazing already. She pregnated very well. But that being said, and our baby came out very small, but it was heavy. They said that's good. That means she's dense and has developed well inside, which is something I'm thankful for. She is teeny though. She's amazing. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And healthy. Now there's two main worries about what happens after the baby comes out. One of which is your kidneys take your blood and pull the toxins out, make urine. Believe it or not, it's a gravity-fed situation from there through these ducts down into the bladder. Naturally, in a good situation, in perfectly healthy kidneys, when the bladder itself wants to drain and you urinate, it's a muscle that squeezes your bladder. There's natural check valves that stop the stuff from back flowing into your kidneys again. And as you can imagine, that's not a good situation. If your other kidney is not working, that your urine's being pushed back up into it, it's going to create an infection and you're going to have major problems. Luckily enough, we were not susceptible to that. However, it took days to hear that because of the general existence of urine and things of this nature. Obviously, the umbilical fluid inside of a uterus during development is technically urine, which is your second worry, and that's why they bring you in every week to make sure that the first kidney is doing enough to keep the fluids right during the pregnancy. And we found out about 35 weeks that they were going to pull the baby early, and the target date was 37 weeks. If it made it to 37 weeks, they said that at that time she had developed enough that she would be fully developed lung-wise, which is the last thing to develop, and things would be copacetic enough that they wouldn't worry about that last 2 weeks, which is very vital to have this right amount of fluid there. That worked out. Our baby came out and it was eating like nothing. My wife wasn't really producing any milk yet either, which was major concern to a certain extent. And in those days to follow was repeatedly required to watch doctors who loved that baby more than me, maybe. I don't know. It was amazing to watch, but there was no choice. They have to poke and prong and pick and try to get blood and test blood sugar every 2 minutes. And man, she just got absolutely manipulated for days, and she was starting to freak out about it. You know, instead of expecting a loving touch every time someone touches her, you can tell that she's almost gearing up in a defense, you know, an instinctive defense mode that makes her want to, you know, while out and say, don't hurt me, in a certain sense. And that, at one point, they were trying to get a blood sample to test the kidneys, make sure that they were working right. And I'm watching them. They got about a half a vial, and she is absolutely screaming in agony. They're going, both arms, both legs, feet were tore apart, you know, trying to get blood. They couldn't. They got these high def lights shining through her body, which I've never seen before. It was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. They did this every day. And then last day, my wife was down there watching with me because she had been discharged 3 days after the delivery, but the baby was still admitted. And she had to get up and walk out. My wife is a nurse. She's not familiar with NICU processes, but she's a nurse. And the emotions just started flowing. I felt horrible, and it was just, it's a tough situation. Secondly, this skewed the relationship between my wife and I, who's actually not my wife. We've been engaged for years. I've been living with her for 10 years, but we never did get married, which I think played into this a little more. But when it's said and done, it makes you feel alienated to hear that your baby's going through this. You're going to go to work and people are going to say, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. Like they understand, but they don't. And, you know, the fact is that you don't know many people with a sick kid or this type of issue. It's a lot more common than you would think, but we asked around and we had found no one. And the doctors we were dealing with were like, when was the last time you dealt with something like this? Oh, I don't know, once or twice. It never sounded like it was a common thing to us. So you're left so much in the idea of not knowing what's going to happen. And doctors try very hard not to tell you the worst case scenario because they don't want you to worry. And worrying isn't good, and the positive thing is so important for her to develop the right way and be healthy during this pregnancy. So the fact is that you're in between a rock and a hard place. There's no doubt about it. You're not going to get around it. It's not going to be fun. You're going to be at the point where your wife's going to tell you she's leaving you before it's born. It's going to be a horrible thing. I mean, the second trimester, my wife calmed down hormonally, but third was wild, evil. She's like the devil. And it's tough. It's very tough. I mean, if you at any time believe that this is something that is getting between you guys, you really have to just calm her down and tell her, like, look, I'm here. You're not alone. We can't worry. We can't expect the worst. And the biggest thing I can tell you is to push. And if you got to travel. Find one of these hospitals that are amazing. Because I can personally give you an experience that the difference in reassurance between a shitty hospital and a really good hospital is huge. There's no... If I didn't have CHOP during this process, I don't know that me and Chrissy would really be in any way together right now. It was extremely hard. I mean, it was difficult. Probably the hardest, the hardest 6 months of my life, no doubt. And that's to say, there's plenty of videos on here to teach you about the hormones of a woman while you're in pregnancy situations. Man, they're fucking evil. And women that are watching this, I apologize, but you're fucking evil. And please, there was a couple times that my wife took it way too far. If you are women watching this, think about that. If you've taken it too far, acknowledge it. Let it settle down, whatever. Take the time you need to make him feel it. And then say to the dude, yo, man, I apologize. I know I'm fucking killing you, but, this is hard for us. You gotta find that bond again. If you don't, you're gonna tear yourselves apart. And there's no way that a positive result comes out of this unless you're both on the same team, especially when you get there to delivery. God, I mean, I can't explain enough. That being said, another huge thing that we were really pissed off about, actually, and ignorantly unappreciative until we realized how much it helped us, was that her mom, which we kind of lied to and said that you weren't allowed to be there because she's a pain in the butt sometimes, decided to come and show up the next day, which is where we expected to have the baby already, which didn't happen for another 2 days. And in that circumstance, it really wasn't anything but another thing to have to worry about. Now we have company and this and that. But once the baby was out, it was huge. It was so big because your wife really can't get up and go to the bathroom. She can't do this and that without a little hand. And not to mention, a woman is going to immediately, my wife said it a bunch of times, and now I'm going to add to this vlog with one with me and my wife, and then just my wife, so that you get an idea of perspectives and where it went and how it went. We're also going to provide you with everything in the way of our information, because I couldn't find that in the beginning, and I would have loved to talk to a guy that was reasonable, that was in my similar situation from my perspective, and hear what he had to say about his experience with this. That didn't exist. It doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. So this will allow those people, all you had to do is email me. We can talk. I'll answer the phone whenever and drop everything I'm doing to help you. Because there is a positive result that can result from this, and although it sucks that your daughter or son has one kidney. They can live a normal life. Now, I was very happy to hear recently, when it comes to the insurance involved with this, that Pennsylvania allows people to use, that is considered a disability lifelong, so they can use disability as primary insurance. I'm obviously making too much money to get welfare or anything like this, and I don't agree with it in all senses, but for my daughter to get the best advantage of preventative care during this, it's going to take a lot. And a lot of it is considered a choice. You know, it's not a medical necessity. And therefore, your insurance companies, regardless of how good they are, even if you have government employee insurance, are going to kick a shitload of those charges back to you. That goes for the initial primary care too. And that is why there's a huge, huge, huge benefit for dealing with an advanced hospital. They know this. They don't want you to cut your care, so they save it. And they don't bill everything until the end. And therefore, you've completed your stuff. And if you get stuck with a huge bill, that sucks. But you don't have to pay on a medical bill. You have to pay $5 a month. Can't be held against you, to the most part. Now, you do want to be positive, and you want to realize that a lot of it is going to end up reverting back to private care after she's born or he's born, and those things are going to start adding up. So if you can get in any kind of disability insurance situation where it's paid in full, there's no co-pays, and they don't argue with you in those circumstances as to the best interest of the child, not money. Because money is an evil thought when you consider your child getting the help it needs or protective care it needs, advanced and the best of the best, and eliminating any future risks of issues. And we're in the process of dealing with that now, which is less than efficient, but it is there, and we will explain that as well. Wait till you see this beautiful baby girl. And I think that the three most important things, if you have just heard about this diagnosis, are stay a team. If you're a team now, stay a team. Guys, respect them. I think the hardest thing is probably to realize that at most of the points, a simple I love you, once she starts into you, because she's going to find what gets to you and get to you, and you might have a shell like myself, but in the end, that shell breaks down very easily in a vulnerable situation like you're in. So stay a team. Think about it. Talk about it. Preemptively expect that there's going to be emotional moments for which there's very little understanding or experience involved. It's naturally the worst situation that you could ever imagine, but at the same time, it's so important for her to stay positive, stay on top of eating, stay on top of staying healthy, take your vitamins every day, and things like this. Also, it's very easy to fall into a funk when it comes to what you guys are doing. As she gets bigger, which is funny, man. My wife at 20 weeks, she wouldn't have thought she was pregnant at all. By 30 weeks, she was huge, all belly. So that gets in the way of, what are we going to do for fun? And you have to remind yourself that there is something that you have to do to keep your mind off of this. And such of that nature. And I'd say the second most important thing is to not expect the worst. I kept telling my wife that she's a fire breather. You're lying, and there's no possible way that anything is going to happen to this kid, and that's the way we're going to put it. And if anybody has anything to say otherwise, we're going to tell them to fuck themselves. And that brought a lot of benefit to our situation. But lastly is, and this is towards the guys, stay positive all the time, 100% positive. Don't let it drop. I mean, you have to fucking stay positive, 100%. It's huge. It is huge. So again, I'm going to add to this in the next coming days. We're going to detail a little bit more, dissect exactly where our daughter was. I'm also going to open the door when it comes to the paperwork and everything. I'll show you so that you know I'm being straight as an arrow as to where and what happened after birth. Initially, you know, what were the scares, what were the situations that have occurred, what was the testing and all this, as well as the follow-up. And I want to keep you detailed on all of that, and I hope it helps somebody. I also would love to bring some attention to this diagnosis, and not only that, but the follow-up care that is slated for us in the next year, which is somewhat constant. You know, it's every couple weeks here for the next 2 months, and then it's twice a month till she's 5, which is and I'll explain a little better. At 5 years old, there's 2 ways that this thing can result, from what I understand. So that's it. My name's Fish. I do love fishing. But again, I'm looking forward to it, and she's amazing. Don't think that you're out of the water, because there's plenty of shit that you're going to deal with in the interim, but expect a good baby that you would never know the difference for. And that's what the intention is, alright? Any questions or particular angles that you would like me to go over a little better, please comment below. There's no doubt that this is a channel I intended to kind of go into the angling portion of it, and I might add some videos of that, but at this point we're going to continue to focus primarily on my experience, my wife's experience, and more importantly, our incredible baby girl, Aurelia. And I hope that anybody in this circumstance realizes just how lucky you are, and you will when you get to that hospital and realize just how many horrible, horrible things can happen to your child, that you would be in such a worse position than you are with this diagnosis. And support your local children's hospital. It's amazing what these people do. I mean, I thought I was heartless to a certain extent, but these people give up an incredible amount of time and effort and compassion to provide care at these places, and I'm quite assured that without Children's Hospital, my life would be completely different right now. And I think my wife will agree. So, like I said, I hope this all helps. Comment below, let me know how it goes, what it goes. I'll try to keep it a little more stable in the next video. Talk to you soon. Again, multicystic dysplastic kidney does not mean that your daughter or son will live any different life. Remain strong, alright? Talk to you soon.